this is Kim with Mom's Creative Moments. Welcome back for another lesson in Scrapbooking 101.5. Today we're just going to do some simple borders, and I'm going to show you some techniques that are just really fast, easy, and elegant. So let's check out my workspace and we'll get started. Alright, so this is my workspace for today, and I thought what I would do is take the Something Blue paper pack, which is the new collection that just came out from CM. It's the new wedding collection. So it's got some really beautiful papers and some combinations that we can put together that should be really lovely. And I'm going to show you just some really quick and easy ways to make borders. Borders are much more jazzy and involved if you add a punch or a border maker to the mix, but you can do some things without having those. So my goal here is to kind of show you a few that you can make that you don't need a punch for, and then show you what you can do if you do have a punch, just to kind of kick it up another notch and let you know how easy it is to do that. Okay, so I'm going to set this paper pack aside. I've pulled a few papers out of it already so that we can play with them. I do have the what we're calling the Scalloped Hearts Border Maker cartridge, which came out with this collection available, so we'll play with that a little bit later, but for right now, I just want to show you a couple of things that we can do that don't involve punching. Okay, so I have a few remnants of papers from the layouts that I've just completed with this collection. So I've got a piece of white cardstock, some gray cardstock. These measure about 3.5 inches roughly by 12. And then I have these two pieces that were left over from the designer sheet that I used with the project recipes that I put together. So these pieces measure about 1 3/4 inch wide by 12. Okay, they're basically the remnants from the project recipe. So what I would suggest is that you could make an extra wide border for one side of your layout. Like if these are your base sheets right here, then you could do an extra wide layout border down one side, and then maybe do a narrow border that's similar down the other side, or maybe don't do a border on this side at all. Maybe just do one on one side. Or you could make two that are exactly the same and make them go on both sides, or make them go across the bottom, or maybe just a little bit up from the bottom. Okay, by taking my paper and adding it right down the middle of a blank piece of cardstock, my designer paper down the middle of a complementing piece of cardstock, that in itself creates a nice simple border. If you add an embellishment to it, you could use this as a cute little border for your page. If you want to jazz it up a little bit more, you could cut an even more narrow strip to go down the center, or you could use a border sticker down the center of your paper. You can see how that would look really nice to add this border sticker right here, just right down the center of that, right? Here I've got the gray piece and the stripes that I used in the alternate layout I showed in the project recipe video. That actually you probably aren't going to see that till for another week or so, but be watching for it. It'll be coming out. And so you can see how nicely that looks on the cool gray cardstock. You could flip it over and use the other side, the green side, and then maybe put something down the center. You could use, again, this 12-inch border strip right here, the one with the pieces in the center that make it look like a ribbon, like that. Just right down the center of that paper would be really cute. You could In addition, if you wanted to, what we could do is add an additional layer of paper. And if you wanted to, you could make that just straight. So this piece is 1 3/4 inches. You could make your piece underneath it 2 1/4 inches wide. That would give you an extra 1/4 inch to frame that on the outside. Let's see what that might look like. I can take my trimmer here, and we'll take the I Love You paper, and we'll just trim off 2 1/4 inches. Okay, now you can use the I Love You side, which is a nice complementary blue, and put that right in underneath. Add that too, and see how it complements that even more. You could make that even wider if you wanted to. Remember when you make it wider to double the amount that you want added, so that you have an equal portion on either side. Does that make sense? So this is the centerpiece is 1 3/4 inch. The piece underneath is 2 1/4. If you wanted this to be more like 1/2 inch on either side, then you would need to make this love piece 2 3/4 inches. Increase it by 1/2 inch so you have a 1/4 on either side. Okay, or we could flip this over. There's a really nice gray on the back that adds even a different tone to the blue strip down the center. Really, really nice, very pretty. And then you would just add some embellishments, and you're done. It's just really, really nice. The nice part about a piece that's more like this is you can use that as your title strip. So you can, if you have this and it's just a little more narrow, you could put your title across that and make that a title page, essentially. Let's see what this would look like with our stripes on the gray. That's very striking, isn't it? Very smart looking. That would look nice in a masculine album, I think. It's not flowery, it's not, doesn't remind you, it reminds me of something masculine, like a man's shirt or something. Anyway, so that's also a good option. We could take this piece, and let's cut this piece into, let's make it 2 1/2 inches. Okay, so we're going to cut this at 2 1/2 inches. And then I'm going to take and use my border punch. And I'm going to punch both sides of this. Show you how quickly you can just dress these up. They're fine if they're left just straight. You can do a lot more with the straightness. You can cut things into segments and do 3-inch segments of one paper and alternate it with 3-inch segments of another paper, or same thing with a 4-inch segment. You could do that as well. So I'm flipping my paper around, and you'll notice that it's not quite long enough to get caught by my magnet here. So what I'm going to do is take a couple of Post-it notes and stick on to my border. And then the Post-it notes will hold the paper, and the border maker will hold the Post-it notes, so that I can punch another edge down this. Now remember, this was a 2.5-inch piece of paper originally. So if you cut this a little thinner, then you, sorry, my paper is buckling and it's bothering me. There. Okay. If you cut your strip a little more narrow, then you don't get as wide of a border down the center. But when you have a border down the center like this, so you could use this on its own. You could cut a piece of this darker blue and put right down the middle. Let's see, we have about 1 inch down the middle. So let me cut this into a 1-inch piece. Hold on a second. Okay, so then we could put this right down the middle of that, and maybe go ahead and take that and mount it on top of a solid base. And now we have an even fancier border. I would move this so that it's a little bit closer. Maybe trim this down so that it's more of a 2.25-inch wide piece of gray cardstock that this is mounted on, and then add your embellishments on 1/3, on the top third or the bottom third of the border. Very, very pretty. Let's see what it would look like if we cut that. Let's see, what could we use to cut? We could use the gray, or we could use the gray for the base and use the green. Let's punch the green and just see how it turns out. Just curious how that will work. A lot of border making is experiment. Let's see what happens if we do this. Let's see what this looks like if we do this. So play with your paper. See what you can make it do. And when you have a designer sheet that's narrow like this that you're trying to punch from, you might want to punch the middle pieces first. Leave a little bit of a gap where it actually is attached, so that maybe, because you can see how the paper flexes sometimes when I go to put my housing, push my housing in. Why is it doing that? Sometimes it's just because the paper you're using is a little bit thinner. So if that happens to you, you can do a couple of things. You can do what I'm doing and just kind of brace it with your fingers, or you can add another piece underneath it, another piece of paper, so that you're essentially punching 2 papers at once. And then it will give your paper more body and help it stay where it needs to be so that it gets punched correctly. Now when you're punching a piece that is this short or this narrow, I will just say that sometimes you're going to punch your Post-it note. And that's okay if you punch your Post-it note. Your Post-it note can be taken off eventually, so that's not a big deal. My table's getting kind of messy, sorry about that. Okay, so let's just try and do this narrow piece. My intention is to come back and give you some even more ideas at a later date for these types of things. So I hope this is something that you enjoy. If it is, if you'll make a comment and let me know, that would be great, so that I know whether this is something I ought to focus on or not. If it's something that you'd like to see variations and ideas on borders, then I'm happy to do that. I am by no means the border queen, but I don't mind playing with paper and showing you what I think it can do. So let me know what you think and what would be helpful to you. Okay? So we can put that right down the middle. You'll notice we still have about 3/8 of an inch in between. So we could add a sticker down the center. We could add a really thin stripe down the center. We could we could even take a piece of this piece and flip it over. Let's go with this very thin line that says love. I don't know if you can see that on camera, probably not. But so I'm just trimming off a quarter of an inch of the back of this gray paper that we're using, and it's just enough to show us the word love. So we'll make the gray the base over the white, then the green, and then we'll put love straight through the center. That makes a really, really nice looking border, and I would make it a horizontal border for my page rather than a vertical border. Really, really nice. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you'll make a comment and let me know if this is helpful to you. And until next time, I hope that you will be able to have many more creative moments, and we'll see you next time for Scrapbooking 101.5. Take care now.